Welcome to Jesus Leads. In our journey through the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings, we witness the rise and reign of Solomon, Israel's wisest and wealthiest king. From the building of the temple and the fulfillment of God's promises to Solomon's wisdom and the Queen of Sheba's awe, we delve deep into Solomon's extraordinary achievements. However, as we move forward, we also see the challenges he faced, including his turn away from God. Join us as we explore these pivotal moments, learning from Solomon's faithfulness, wisdom, and the consequences of disobedience. Stay tuned for more insights and reflections. Chapter 1. The reign of Solomon begins when King David was old and advanced in years. He could not keep warm, even when they put covers over him. So his servants said to him, "Let us find a young virgin to serve the king and take care of him. Let her lie beside him so that our lord the king may keep warm." Then they searched for a beautiful young woman throughout the land of Israel and found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her to the king. The woman was very beautiful. She took care of the king and waited on him, but the king had no intimate relations with her. Now Adonijah, the son of Haggith, exalted himself, saying, "I will be king." He provided himself with chariots and horses and with 50 men to run before him. His father had never rebuked him by asking, "Why do you behave as you do?" He was also very handsome and was born next after Absalom. Adonijah conferred with Joab, son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they gave him their support. But Zadok the priest, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shimei and Ray, and David's special guard did not join Adonijah. Adonijah then sacrificed sheep, cattle, and fattened calves at the stone of Zoheleth near En-Rogel. He invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah who were royal officials. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet or Benaiah or the special guard or his brother Solomon. Then Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, and said, "Have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and our lord David knows nothing about it? Now then, let me advise you how you can save your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go into King David and say to him, 'My lord the king, did you not swear to me, your servant, surely Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne? Why then has Adonijah become king? While you are still there talking to the king, I will come in and confirm what you have said.' So Bathsheba went to the king in his room. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite was attending to him. Bathsheba bowed low and knelt before the king. 'What is it you want?' the king asked. She said to him, 'My lord, you yourself swore to me, your servant, by the Lord your God, Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne. But now Adonijah has become king, and you, my lord the king, do not know about it. He has sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves, and sheep, and has invited all the king's sons, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army. But he has not invited Solomon your servant. My lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you to learn from you who will sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise, as soon as my lord the king is laid to rest with his ancestors, I and my son Solomon will be treated as criminals." While she was still speaking with the king, Nathan the prophet arrived, and they told the king, "Nathan the prophet is here." So he went before the king and bowed with his face to the ground. "My lord the king," he said, "did you say that Adonijah shall be king after you, and that he will sit on your throne? Today he has sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves, and sheep, and has invited all the king's sons, the commanders of the army, and Abiathar the priest. Right now they are eating and drinking with him, and saying, 'Long live King Adonijah.' But me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon he did not invite. Is this something my lord the king has done, without letting his servants know who should sit on the throne of my lord the king after him? King David said, "Call in Bathsheba." So she came into the king's presence and stood before him. The king then took an oath. "As surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, I will surely carry out this very day what I swore to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place." Then Bathsheba bowed down. King David said, "Call in Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah son of Jehoiada." When they came before the king, he said to them, "Take your Lord's servants with you, and have Solomon my son mount my own mule and take him down to Gihon. There have Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him king over Israel. Blow the trumpet and shout, 'Long live King Solomon!' Then you are to go up with him, and he is to come and sit on my throne and reign in my place. I have appointed him ruler over Israel and Judah." Benaiah son of Jehoiada answered the king, "Amen. May the Lord, the God of my lord the king, so declare it. As the Lord was with my lord the king, so may he be with Solomon to make his throne even greater than the throne of my lord King David." So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, the Kerethites and Pelethites went down and had Solomon mount King David's mule, and they escorted him to Gihon. Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the sacred tent and anointed Solomon. Then they blew the trumpet, and all the people shouted, "Long live King Solomon!" And all the people went up after him, playing pipes and rejoicing greatly, so that the ground shook with the sound. And Adonijah and all the guests who were with him heard it as they were finishing their meal. On hearing the sound of the trumpet, Joab asked, "What's the meaning of this noise in the city?" Even as he was speaking, Jonathan son of Abiathar the priest arrived. Adonijah said, "Come in. A worthy man like you must be bringing good news." "Not at all," Jonathan answered. "Our lord King David has made Solomon king. The king has sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah son of Jehoiada, the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and they have put him on the king's mule. And Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet have anointed him king at Gihon. From there they have gone up cheering, and the city resounds with it. Moreover, Solomon has taken his seat on the royal throne." Adonijah and all the guests who were with him rose in alarm and went to the city of refuge. But Adonijah, fearing Solomon, got up and went to the sacred tent and took hold of the horns of the altar. Then Solomon was told, "Adonijah is afraid of King Solomon and is clinging to the horns of the altar. He says, 'Let King Solomon swear to me today that he will not put his servant to death with the sword.' Solomon answered, 'If he shows himself to be a worthy man, not a hair of his will fall to the ground. But if evil is found in him, he will die.' Then King Solomon sent men, and they brought him down from the altar, and he came and bowed to King Solomon. Solomon said, 'Go to your home.'" In this chapter, King David, now elderly and frail, faces a struggle for the throne. Adonijah, his son, attempts to take the throne by gathering support from key leaders, while Solomon, the true successor, is supported by the prophet Nathan and his mother Bathsheba. David reaffirms Solomon's kingship, and Solomon is anointed as king, leading to Adonijah's downfall and retreat. The chapter emphasizes the importance of divine will and loyalty in the leadership transition. Chapter 2, the death of David and the charge to Solomon. When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. "I am about to go the way of all the earth," he said. "So be strong, act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him, and keep his decrees and commands, his laws and regulations, as written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. Now you yourself know what Joab son of Zeruiah did to me, what he did to the two commanders of Israel's armies, Abner son of Ner and Amasa son of Jether. He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle. And with that blood he stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace, but show kindness to the sons of Barzillai of Gilead, and let them be among those who eat at your table. They stood by me when I fled from your brother Absalom. And remember, you have with you Shimei son of Gera, the Benjamite from Bahurim, who called down bitter curses on me the day I went to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death. Then David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. He had reigned 40 years over Israel, 7 years in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established. Now Adonijah, the son of Haggith, went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. Bathsheba asked him, "Do you come peacefully?" He answered, "Yes, peacefully." Then he added, "I have something to say to you." "You may say it," she replied. He continued, "You know that the kingdom was mine. All Israel looked to me as their king. But things changed, and the kingdom has become my brother's, for it has come to him from the Lord. Now I have one request to make of you. Do not deny me." "You may make it," she said. So he replied, "Please ask King Solomon. He will not refuse you, to give me Abishag the Shunammite as my wife." Bathsheba replied, "Very well, I will speak to the king for you." When Bathsheba went to King Solomon to speak to him for Adonijah, the king stood up to meet her, bowed down to her, and sat down on his throne. He had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat down at his right hand. "I have one small request to make of you," she said. "Do not refuse me." The king replied, "Make it, my mother. I will not refuse you." So she said, "Let Abishag the Shunammite be given in marriage to your brother Adonijah." King Solomon answered his mother, "Why do you request Abishag the Shunammite for Adonijah? You might as well ask the kingdom for him. After all, he is my older brother. Yes, for him and for Abiathar, the priest, and Joab, son of Zeruiah." Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, "May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if Adonijah does not pay with his life for this request. And now, as surely as the Lord lives, who has established me securely on the throne of my father David, and has built a house for me, as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death today." So King Solomon gave orders to Benaiah son of Jehoiada, and he struck down Adonijah, and he died. To Abiathar the priest the king said, "Go back to your fields in Anathoth. You deserve to die, but I will not put you to death now, because you carried the ark of the sovereign Lord before my father David, and shared all my father's hardships." So Solomon removed Abiathar from the priesthood of the Lord, fulfilling the word the Lord had spoken at Shiloh against the house of Eli. When the news reached Joab, who had conspired with Adonijah, though not with Absalom, he fled to the tent of the Lord and took hold of the horns of the altar. King Solomon was told that Joab had fled to the tent of the Lord and was beside the altar. Then Solomon ordered Benaiah son of Jehoiada, "Go, strike him down." So Benaiah entered the tent of the Lord and said to Joab, "The king says, 'Come out.'" But he answered, "No, I will die here." Benaiah reported to the king, "This is how Joab answered me." Then the king commanded Benaiah, "Do as he says. Strike him down and bury him, and so clear me and my family of the guilt of the innocent blood that Joab shed. The Lord will repay him for the blood he shed, because without my father David knowing it, he attacked 2 men and killed them with the sword. Both of them were more righteous and better than he. May the Lord repay him for his blood. But to David and his descendants, and his house and his throne, may there be peace from the Lord forever. Then Benaiah son of Jehoiada went up and struck down Joab and killed him, and he was buried at his home in the wilderness. The king put Benaiah son of Jehoiada over the army in Joab's position and replaced Abiathar with Zadok the priest. Then the king sent for Shimei and said to him, "Build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. The day you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die. Your blood will be on your own head." Shimei answered the king, "What you say is good. Your servant will do as my lord the king has said." And Shimei stayed in Jerusalem for a long time. But 3 years later, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran off to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath. And Shimei was told, "Your slaves are in Gath." At this he saddled his donkey and went to Achish at Gath in search of his slaves. So Shimei went away and brought the slaves back from Gath. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king summoned Shimei and said to him, "Did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you? On the day you leave to go anywhere, you can be sure you will die? At that time you said to me, 'What you say is good, I will obey.' Why then did you not keep your oath to the Lord and obey the command I gave you?" The king also said to Shimei, "You know in your heart all the wrong you did to my father David. Now the Lord will repay you for your wrongdoing, but King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain secure before the Lord forever." Then the king gave orders to Benaiah son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck Shimei down and killed him. So the kingdom was now established in Solomon's hands. In this chapter, David gives his final instructions to Solomon, urging him to be strong and to follow God's commands. David also warns Solomon about those who have wronged him, including Joab, Shimei, and Adonijah. Solomon takes decisive action to eliminate threats to his reign by executing Adonijah, removing Abiathar, and dealing with Joab and Shimei. With these actions, Solomon firmly establishes his rule over Israel, ensuring peace and justice in his kingdom. Chapter 3. Solomon asks for wisdom. Solomon made an alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and married his daughter. He brought her to the city of David until he finished building his palace in the temple of the Lord, the wall around Jerusalem. The people, however, were still sacrificing at the high places, because a temple had not yet been built for the name of the Lord. Solomon showed his love for the Lord by walking according to the instructions given him by his father David, except that he offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon answered, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you and righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him and have given him a son to sit on his throne this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands as your father David did, I will give you a long life." Then Solomon awoke, and he realized it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the Ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all his court. Now 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. One of them said, "Pardon me, my lord. This woman and I live in the same house, and I had a baby while she was there with me. The 3rd day after my child was born, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There was no one in the house but the 2 of us. During the night, this woman's son died because she lay on him. So she got up in the middle of the night and took my son from my side, while I, your servant, was asleep. She put him by her breast and put her dead son by my breast. The next morning I got up to nurse my son, and he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't the son I had born." The other woman said, "No, the living one is my son. The dead one is yours." But the first one insisted, "No, the dead one is yours, the living one is mine." And so they argued before the king. The king said, "This one says, 'My son is alive and your son is dead,' while that one says, 'No, your son is dead and mine is alive.'" Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order, "Cut the living child in 2 and give half to one and half to the other." The woman whose son was alive was deeply moved out of love for her son and said to the king, "Please, my lord, give her the living baby. Don't kill him." But the other said, "Neither I nor you shall have him. Cut him in 2. Then the king gave his ruling, "Give the living baby to the first woman. Do not kill him. She is his mother." When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. Sarai Kareem. In this chapter, Solomon seeks wisdom from God, asking for the ability to govern his people with discernment. Pleased with his selfless request, God grants Solomon unparalleled wisdom, along with wealth and honor. Solomon's wisdom is soon demonstrated when he resolves a dispute between 2 women over a child, revealing his deep understanding of human nature. The people of Israel are in awe of Solomon's wisdom, and his reputation as a wise ruler spreads throughout the land. Chapter 4. Solomon's officials and governors. So King Solomon ruled over all Israel, and these were his officials: Azariah, son of Zadok the priest, Elihoreph and Ahijah, the sons of Shisha, secretaries, Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, recorder, Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, commander-in-chief, Zadok and Abiathar, priests, Azariah, son of Nathan, in charge of the district officers, Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and personal advisor to the king, Ahishar, palace administrator, and Adoniram, son of Abda, in charge of forced labor. Solomon had 12 district governors over all Israel, who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. Each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in the year. These are their names: the son of Hur, in the hill country of Ephraim; the son of Dekar, in Makaz, Shalbim, Beth Shemesh, in Elon Bethanan; the son of Hesed, in Arubath, Soko, and all the land of Hepher; the son of Abinadab, in Naphath Dor. He was married to Taphath, daughter of Solomon; Banah, son of Ahilud, in Tanakh and Megiddo, and in all of Beth Shan next to Zaratan, below Jezreel, from Beth Shan to Abel Meholah, across to Jokmeam; the son of Gaber, in Ramoth Gilead. The settlements of Jair, son of Manasseh in Gilead, were his, as well as the region of Argob in Bashan, and 60 large walled cities with bronze gates. Ahinadab, son of Iddo, in Mahanaim; Ahimaaz, in Naphtali. He had married Basemath, daughter of Solomon; Bana, son of Hushai, in Asher and Aloth; Jehoshaphat, son of Peruah, in Issachar; Shimei, son of Elah, in Benjamin; Geber, son of Uri, in Gilead, the country of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and of Og, king of Bashan. He was the only governor of the land. The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They ate, they drank, and they were happy. And Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines, as far as the border of Egypt. These countries brought tribute and were Solomon's subjects all his life. Solomon's daily provisions were 30 kor of fine flour and 60 kor of meal, 10 head of stall-fed cattle, 20 of pasture-fed cattle, and 100 sheep, as well as deer, gazelles, roebucks, and choice fowl. For he ruled over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River, from Tifsah to Gaza, and had peace on all sides. During Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety, each man under his own vine and fig tree. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for chariot horses and 12,000 horses. The district governors, each in his month, supplied provisions for King Solomon and all who came to the king's table. They saw to it that nothing was lacking. They also brought the barley and straw for the horses and the other animals to the proper place in accordance with his instruction. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol. And his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also spoke about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. From all nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. In this chapter, Solomon establishes a well-organized government, appointing various officials and district governors to oversee the kingdom and provide for his court. The people of Israel and Judah flourished under Solomon's rule, living in peace and prosperity. Solomon's wisdom, granted by God, surpassed that of all others, and his fame spread far and wide. He became known for his deep understanding of nature, as well as for when Hiram, king of Tyre, heard that Solomon had been anointed king to succeed his father David. He sent his envoys to Solomon because Hiram had always been a friend of David. Solomon sent back this message to Hiram: "You know that because of the wars waged against my father David from all sides, he could not build a temple for the name of the Lord his God until the Lord put his enemies under his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me rest on every side, and there is no adversary or disaster. I intend, therefore, to build a temple for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord told my father David when he said, 'Your son, whom I will put on the throne in your place, will build the temple for my name.' So give orders that cedars of Lebanon be cut for me. My men will work with yours, and I will pay you for your men whatever wages you set. You know that we have no one so skilled in cutting timber as the Sidonians." When Hiram heard Solomon's message, he was greatly pleased and said, "Praise be to the Lord today, for he has given David a wise son to rule over this great nation." So Hiram sent word to Solomon, "I have received the message you sent me and will do all you want in providing the cedars and juniper logs. My servants will bring them down to the sea from Lebanon, and I will float them as rafts by sea to the place you specify. There I will have them broken up, and you can take them away. And you are to permit my servants to do the work, because I have no one who can cut timber like the Sidonians." Solomon paid Hiram 20,000 kor of wheat as food for his household, in addition to 20,000 baths of pressed olive oil. Solomon continued to do this for Hiram year after year. The Lord gave Solomon wisdom, as he had promised him, and there were peaceful relations between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. King Solomon conscripted laborers from all Israel, 30,000 men. He sent them off to Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 a month, so that they spent 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon had 70,000 men carrying burdens and 80,000 men quarrying stone in the hills, as well as 3,300 foremen who supervised the project and directed the workmen. At the king's command, they brought great large blocks of stone, costly stones and dressed stones to lay the foundation of the temple. All of Solomon's and Hiram's workmen, who were in charge of the building of the temple, were skilled in working with stone and timber. Solomon gave orders to have them prepare the stones and wood for the building of the temple. In this chapter, Solomon begins preparations to build the temple for the Lord, following the instructions given to his father David. Solomon seeks the help of Hiram, the king of Tyre, to provide the necessary materials, including cedar and juniper wood. Hiram, pleased with Solomon's request, agrees to assist and offers his workers for the task. In exchange, Solomon provides Hiram with food and oil. Solomon also conscripts laborers from Israel, organizing them in shifts to cut timber and quarry stone for the temple's construction. The chapter highlights the cooperation between Solomon and Hiram and the scale of the labor required for such a monumental project. Chapter 6. The Temple's Construction. In the 480th year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. The portico at the front of the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is, 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple. He made narrow windows high up in the temple walls. Against the walls of the main hall and the inner sanctuary, he built a structure around the building, in which there were side rooms. The lowest floor was 5 cubits wide, the middle floor 6 cubits wide, and the third floor 7 cubits wide. He made offset ledges around the temple so that nothing would be inserted into the temple walls. The temple was built with blocks of high-grade stone, cut to size, and the stones were quarried to ensure the temple was built perfectly and without the sound of hammer, axe, or any other iron tool being heard at the temple site. The entrance to the lowest floor was on the south side of the temple. Stairs went up to the middle level, and from there to the third. The word of the Lord came to Solomon. As for this temple you are building, if you follow my decrees, carry out my regulations, and keep all my commands. So Solomon built the temple and completed it. He lined its interior with cedar boards, paneling the inside from floor to ceiling, and covered the floor of the temple with pine. He also built the 20-cubit inner sanctuary, the most holy place, and placed in it the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. The inner sanctuary was 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 20 cubits high. He overlaid the inside with pure gold, and he also overlaid the altar of cedar. Solomon covered the inside of the temple with gold, and he made chains of gold to hang in the inner sanctuary. He also overlaid it with gold. He built the inner sanctuary in the main hall of the temple. For the inner sanctuary, he made a pair of cherubim out of olive wood, each 10 cubits high. One wing of the first cherub was 5 cubits long, and the other wing 5 cubits long. The wings of the second cherub were also 5 cubits long. The 2 cherubim spread their wings, 20 cubits wide. They stood facing each other, standing in the inner sanctuary of the temple. Solomon placed the cherubim inside the inner room of the temple, with their wings spread out. The wings of the one cherub touched one wall, while the wings of the other touched the other wall, and the wings touched each other in the middle of the room. He overlaid the cherubim with gold. On the altar of the temple, he made the golden table for the bread of the presence. He also made 10 gold lampstands as prescribed, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. He made 10 tables and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. He also made 100 gold sprinkling bowls. He made the courtyard of the priests and the large court and the doors for the court, which were overlaid with bronze. The doors in the inner sanctuary were made of olive wood, and the door frames were five-sided. He also made 2 doors of olive wood for the entrance to the temple's inner sanctuary. Each door had 2 leaves, and the doors were overlaid with gold. He engraved cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers on them, and he overlaid them with gold. In the 4th year, in the month of Ziv, the foundation of the temple of the Lord was laid. In the 11th year, in the month of Bul, the 8th month, the temple was finished in all its details, according to its specifications. He had spent 7 years building it. In this chapter, the construction of the temple begins in the 4th year of Solomon's reign and takes 7 years to complete. Solomon follows the precise instructions given to him for the temple's dimensions and design, with the structure being made from high-quality materials such as cedar and gold. The temple's interior is beautifully adorned with cherubim, gold, and precious stones, and it houses the Ark of the Covenant. The construction of the temple marks the fulfillment of God's promise to David, and it serves as a symbol of God's presence among the Israelites. The chapter emphasizes the importance of following God's commands in building a holy and sacred space. Chapter 7. Solomon's Palace and Other Building Projects. Solomon was building his own palace, and it took him 13 years to complete it. He also built the Palace of the Forest of Lebanon, a building of great length, 50 cubits long, 30 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high, with 4 rows of cedar columns supporting cedar beams. It was decorated with cedar above the beams, and the structure was paneled with cedar. The palace was made to be grand and spacious, reflecting Solomon's wealth and the beauty of his kingdom. Solomon also built a hall for the throne where he would sit to judge, a hall of judgment. It was paneled with cedar from floor to ceiling. The palace was designed with great attention to detail, and its grandeur was unmatched. For his personal living quarters, Solomon made a special structure, a house that was even more magnificent than the previous palace. It was a place where the king could live and reign in both luxury and peace. Then Solomon made the bronze altar. It was a massive altar, 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 10 cubits high. This altar was made to be an imposing structure, fitting for the temple and its sacred rituals. In addition to this, Solomon had the temple area beautified with a large bronze basin, a massive container used for washing and purification before performing sacred rituals. Solomon also had 10 bronze basins made, each for washing the offering. The craftsmen and artisans who worked on these projects were skilled, and Solomon employed the finest workers for the job. Hiram of Tyre, a highly skilled artisan from the city of Tyre, was brought to assist Solomon in his building ventures. Hiram was skilled in working with bronze and was responsible for much of the intricate metalwork, including the making of the bronze furnishings and the design and casting of various sacred items for the temple. Hiram crafted 2 pillars for the temple. These pillars were massive and beautifully designed. The first pillar, named Yashin, stood on the right side of the temple, and the second pillar, named Boaz, stood on the left side. Both pillars were made with intricate detail, decorated with pomegranates and lily-shaped designs. The height of each pillar was 18 cubits, and they were adorned with capitals or crowns on top of them. The pillars were symbols of strength and stability, meant to stand as a testament to the enduring reign of God's presence. Solomon also had the great bronze basin, known as the sea, made for use in the temple. This basin, which was used for ritual washing, stood on 12 bronze oxen facing outward. It had a capacity of 40 baths and was an important part of the temple's cleansing rituals. After these grand constructions, the items for the temple, such as the golden altar, the table for the showbread, the lampstands, and other items of worship were completed. All of these pieces were made with the finest materials, gold, bronze, and precious stones, and were placed in their proper spots within the temple. Chapter 7 details the completion of Solomon's personal palace and the final stages of the temple's construction. The palace, a grand and luxurious structure, took 13 years to complete and included numerous impressive buildings such as the Palace of the Forest of Lebanon. The craftsmanship involved was of the highest quality, with intricate designs and materials used throughout. Hiram of Tyre played a significant role in creating the bronze furnishings and sacred items for the temple. The two massive bronze pillars and the large basin for ritual washing, along with other sacred objects, were completed as symbols of strength and purity. Solomon's reign is reflected in the splendor of these architectural and artistic works, marking a period of peace and prosperity in Israel. Chapter 8. The Ark brought to the temple. Then King Solomon summoned into his presence at Jerusalem the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes, and the chiefs of the Israelite families, to bring up the Ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. All the Israelites came together to the king at the time of the festival in the month of Ethanim, the 7th month. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of the Lord in the tent of meeting and all the sacred furnishings in it. The priests and Levites carried them up, and King Solomon and the entire assembly of Israel that had gathered about him were before the ark, sacrificing so many sheep and cattle that they could not be counted or numbered. The priests then brought the ark of the Lord's covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark and overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. These poles were so long that their ends extended from the ark to the front of the inner sanctuary, but they could not be seen from outside the holy place. And they are still there today. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets that Moses had placed there at Horeb, where the Lord made a covenant with the Israelites after they came out of Egypt. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. Then Solomon said, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever." While the whole assembly of Israel was standing there, the king turned around and blessed them. Then he said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who with his own hand has fulfilled what he promised with his own mouth to my father David. For he said, 'Since the day I brought my people Israel out of Egypt, I have not chosen a city in any tribe of Israel to have a temple built so that my name might be there, but I have chosen David to rule my people Israel.' My father David had it in his heart to build a temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. But the Lord said to my father David, 'You did well to have it in your heart to build a temple for my name. Nevertheless, you are not the one to build it. He is the one who will build the temple for my name.' The Lord has kept the promise he made. I have succeeded David my father, and now I sit on the throne of Israel, just as the Lord promised, and I have built the temple for the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. There I have placed the ark, in which is the covenant of the Lord that he made with the Israelites." Then Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in front of the whole assembly of Israel, spread out his hands toward heaven, and said, "Lord, the God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth below. You who keep your covenant of love with your servants, who continue wholeheartedly in your way. You have kept your promise to your servant David, my father. With your mouth you have promised, and with your hand you have fulfilled it, as it is today. Now, Lord, the God of Israel, keep for your servant David, my father, the promises you made to him when you said, 'You shall never fail to have a successor to sit before me on the throne of Israel, if only your descendants are careful in all they do to walk before me faithfully as you have done.' And now, God of Israel, let your word that you promised your servant David, my father, come true. But will God really dwell on earth? The heavens, even the highest heaven, cannot contain you. How much less this temple I have built? Yet give attention to your servant's prayer and his plea for mercy, Lord my God. Hear the cry and the prayer that your servant is praying in your presence this day. May your eyes be open toward this temple night and day, this place of which you said, my name shall be there, so that you will hear the prayer your servant prays toward this place. Hear the supplication of your servant and of your people Israel when they pray toward this place. Hear from heaven your dwelling place, and when you hear, forgive. When anyone wrongs their neighbor and is required to take an oath, and they come and swear the oath before your altar in this temple, then hear from heaven and act. Judge between your servants, condemning the guilty and bringing down on their heads what they have done, and vindicating the innocent by treating them in accordance with their innocence. When your people Israel have been defeated by an enemy because they have sinned against you, and when they turn back to you and give praise to your name, praying and making supplication to you in this temple, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your people Israel and bring them back to the land you gave to their ancestors. When the heavens are shut up and there is no rain because your people have sinned against you, and when they pray toward this place and give praise to your name and turn from their sin because you have afflicted them, then hear from heaven and forgive the sin of your servants, your people Israel. Teach them the right way to live and send rain on the land you gave your people for an inheritance. When famine or plague comes to the land, or blight or mildew, locusts or grasshoppers, or when enemies besiege them in any of their cities, whatever disaster or disease may come, and when a prayer or plea is made by anyone among your people Israel, being aware of the afflictions of their own hearts and spreading out their hands toward this temple, then hear from heaven your dwelling place. Forgive and act. Deal with everyone according to all they do, since you know their hearts, for you alone know every human heart, so that they will fear you all the time they live in the land you gave our ancestors. In this chapter, the Ark of the Covenant is brought to the newly built temple in Jerusalem, fulfilling the promise made to David. Solomon prays a powerful prayer of dedication for the temple, acknowledging the greatness of God and the significance of his presence in the temple. He asks God to hear the prayers of his people when they turn to the temple in times of need, sin, or trouble, and to forgive them. Solomon's prayer emphasizes the importance of repentance and God's mercy, while also affirming the central role of the temple as a place for God's presence and a symbol of his covenant with Israel. The chapter marks the dedication of the temple as a pivotal moment in Israel's history, confirming the fulfillment of God's promises to his people. Chapter 9. The Lord appears to Solomon and his covenant with Israel. When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all the other projects he had undertaken, the Lord appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple, which you have built, by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me faithfully with integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel forever. As I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. But if you or your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, "Why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and to this temple?" People will answer, "Because they have forsaken the Lord their God, who brought their ancestors out of Egypt, and have embraced other gods, worshiping and serving them. This is why the Lord brought all this disaster on them." At the end of 20 years during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with cedar and juniper and gold, as he had desired. Hiram went from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, but they did not please him. "What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother?" he asked. And he called them the land of Kabul, a name they have to this day. Now Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. Here is the account of the forced labor King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, his own palace, the terraces, the wall of Jerusalem, and Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer. He had set it on fire, killed its Canaanite inhabitants, and gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter, Solomon's wife. And Solomon rebuilt Gezer. He also built up Lower Beth Horon, Baalath, and Tadmor in the desert, within his land, as well as all his store cities and the cities for his chariots and horses. Whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout all the territory he ruled. There were still people left from the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These people were descendants of those nations whom the Israelites had not been able to destroy completely. These Solomon conscripted to labor for him as slaves, as they are to this day. But Solomon did not make slaves of the Israelites. They were his fighting men, his government officials, his officers, and the commanders of his chariots and charioteers. They were also the chief officials in charge of Solomon's projects. 550 officials supervising the men who did the work. After Pharaoh's daughter came up from the city of David to the palace Solomon had built for her, he constructed the terraces. 3 times a year, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he had built for the Lord, burning incense before the Lord, along with the regular burnt offerings. And so he finished the temple. King Solomon also built ships at Etzion-Geber, which is near Elath in Edom, on the shore of the Red Sea. And Hiram sent his men, sailors who knew the sea, to serve in the fleet with Solomon's men. They sailed to Ophir and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. In this chapter, the Lord appears to Solomon for the second time and reaffirms his covenant with him. God promises to establish Solomon's throne forever if he remains faithful, but warns of disaster if he and his descendants turn to idolatry. Solomon completes his building projects, including the temple, his palace, and cities, and continues his alliances with neighboring nations, such as Hiram of Tyre. Solomon's reign is marked by wisdom, military strength, and prosperity, but the chapter also emphasizes the need for continued obedience to God's commands. The chapter ends with a note about Solomon's naval ventures and the wealth brought to Israel from distant lands. Chapter 10. The Queen of Sheba visits Solomon. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan, camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all that she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon in the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. Never again did so many spices come to Israel as those the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Hiram's servants and Solomon's servants brought gold from Ophir. They also brought wood from the almug tree and precious stones. The king used the almug wood to make supports for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, and to make harps and lyres for the musicians. So much almug wood had never been brought to Israel before. King Solomon gave the queen of Sheba all she desired and asked for, besides what he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David his father had done. On the mountain east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of your father David, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. Yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen." Then the Lord raised up against Solomon an adversary, Hadad the Edomite, from the royal line of Edom. Earlier, when David was fighting with Edom, Joab, the commander of the army, had gone up to bury the dead and had struck down every male in Edom. Joab and all Israel had stayed there for 6 months until they had destroyed all the men in Edom. But Hadad, still only a boy, fled to Egypt with some Edomite officials who had served his father. They set out from Midian and went to Paran. Then, taking people from Paran with them, they went to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who gave Hadad a house and land and provided him with food. Pharaoh was so pleased with Hadad that he gave him a sister of his own wife, Queen Tahpenes, in marriage. The sister of Tahpenes bore him a son, Genubath. Tahpenes took him to Pharaoh's palace, and Genubath lived there with Pharaoh's own children. While he was in Egypt, Hadad heard that David rested with his ancestors and that Joab, the commander of the army, was dead. Then Hadad said to Pharaoh, "Let me return to my own country." Pharaoh asked, "What do you lack here that you want to go back to your own country?" "Nothing," Hadad replied, "but do let me go." And God raised up against Solomon another adversary, Rezon son of Eliada, who had fled from his master, Hadadezer, king of Zobah. When David defeated Hadadezer, Rezon gathered a band of men around him and became their leader. They went to Damascus, where they settled and took control of it. Rezon was Israel's adversary as long as Solomon lived, adding to the trouble caused by Hadad. So the Lord allowed Solomon to be afflicted by these adversaries. As if this was not enough, God also raised up Jeroboam, son of Nebat, an Ephraimite of Zeradah, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow. Jeroboam had rebelled against Solomon. Here is the account of how he had rebelled against the king. Solomon had built the supporting terraces and had filled in the gap in the wall of the city of David his father. Now Jeroboam was a man of standing, and when Solomon saw how industrious he was, he put him in charge of the whole labor force of the house of Joseph. About that time Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem, and Ahijah the prophet of Shiloh met him on the way. Ahijah had clothed himself with a new cloak. The two of them were alone out in the country, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 pieces for yourself, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I am going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand and give you 10 tribes. But for the sake of my servant David in the city of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of respect for David's descendants, I will give 1 tribe to Solomon. I will do this because they have forsaken me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites, and have not walked in obedience to me, nor done what is right in my eyes, nor kept my decrees and laws as David Solomon's father did. But I will not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of David my servant, whom I chose and who obeyed my commands and decrees. I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give you 10 tribes. I will give 1 tribe to his son, so that David my servant may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I chose to put my name. However, as for you, I will take you, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. You will be king over Israel." Jeroboam was the one Solomon had put in charge of the labor force of the house of Joseph, but he rebelled against the king. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt, to Shishak, king of Egypt, where he stayed until Solomon's death. In this chapter, Solomon's heart turns away from God due to his many foreign wives, who lead him into idolatry. As a result, God becomes angry with Solomon and declares that he will tear the kingdom from his son's hands. Despite this, God promises to leave 1 tribe for Solomon's descendants for the sake of David. God raises up adversaries against Solomon, including Hadad the Edomite, Rezon of Zobah, and Jeroboam, who rebels against Solomon and is prophesied to rule over 10 tribes of Israel. The chapter highlights Solomon's decline due to disobedience, marking a turning point in his reign. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings. We've seen Solomon's wisdom, his glorious reign, and the challenges he faced. Let's remember the lessons of faithfulness, obedience, and the importance of keeping God at the center. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more insights from Jesus Leads. Stay blessed.